Yat she bilagana nishle do ki yaani bashishchin bilagana dashache do sinijeni dashanale akot ego atsad nishle. Yat sio. Hello, as we say in Navajo and Cherokee. I'm talking to you from the country of Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma and the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians. But I am a citizen of the Navajo Nation, so I am a guest, a visitor in these parts. But I acknowledge and I do the best to be an educator and encourage everyone wherever you are to know the indigenous histories, know the places and the peoples who have shaped the lands where you have been since time immemorial, so many generations, that whether you're conscious of it or not, they have been a part of the space that you occupy, that you dwell in, that you may come to know as home. And I appreciate being invited to this forum, and it is an honor and very humbling to be among such wonderful scholars, public intellectuals such as Paul Cox and Ben Abbott, and I appreciate and honor, respect your work. I especially appreciated how Paul Cox referred to his collaboration and support of Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous communities. So a key part of where I'm coming from, where I began in Dene Bizad, Navajo language, was actually the ancestral practice of introducing ourselves. For Dene, the people, Navajo people as we call ourselves, you introduce yourself by your clans, by your kinship, and it already establishes how we relate to each other, where we come from. People can know just by that introduction. I know my family history. I know the place where my family comes from and considers home, that I am matrilineally of English American descent on my mother's side, and born for the Towering House clan and Black Streaked Wood people of the Navajo Nation. So paternally, my father's, through my father, my family are from what's now considered New Mexico, but my ancestors have been a part of these regions of what's known as Deneta, and ancestral homelands of what's near Crown Point, New Mexico, and not too far from Gallup, New Mexico. So folks can know how we're related by our clans, and it always means a lot to me that for Dene, our clans are deeply connected to place, the woods, water, Bitterwater clan, near the water clan, cliff dwellers, different connections that are embedded with this sense of earth and our connection to it, our relation to it. And as I'm learning about Cherokee people and many diverse peoples and tribal nations, learning as well the clans that they have are often tied to all living things, birds, wolves, and different connections there of it's this identity is beyond just one human to human relation, but it's already very interconnected to all things around us. And I would want to begin with even emphasizing a key concept that will be coming up in my message. The words I want to share with you is one that I'm carrying from my ancestors, my Dene ancestors specifically, because I have many relations, many connections, including in Utah, but I want to realize as well that Mormon and Latter-day Saint influence is global. And that's an emphasis that I try to hammer as well, working with global Mormon studies, woman in Mormon studies, and different consortium in particular studies of the different restoration traditions and influences. And it's an honor for the work and to recognize all those who are continuing these conversations and works. But hajo is a key concept that you might translate it or hear it as beauty, but it's a very deeper sense of beauty. Beauty is almost superficial of what we mean by that. Hajo is a key philosophy in Navajo teaching that basically can be understood as balance, harmony, But in Hajo prayers of Hajoje kind of prayers, we talk about beauty being all around us, surrounding us, in front of us, behind us, below us, above us, coming through our voices, the message we share. And that's what I hope here, is that we seek this beauty. As a active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who was raised also in that faith and influenced by different traditions of Latter-day Saints through years, I've come to also understand that as light, something I connect with Christ and the beauty that Christ wants us to have balance and even the plan of salvation. Why are we here? Why are we facing all these struggles constantly? 2020 being such an example of that, and all that we're going through is to learn, to grow, that it's not just a process to put a Band-Aid on something and heal, but it's a cycle. It's very cyclical, and it's an ongoing process, and one that our children, their children, and posterity will face. But we have a chance now, while we are connected, our ancestors continue to live on. We go to the temple to do work for the dead, as we say, and our hearts turn to our forebearers. Why were they thinking about us? Do they still think about us? And these intergenerational ties, those are key aspects that influence me. And I want to share with you from my, I'm carrying a lot of words that for Dene, I want to really show my humility that I'm sharing words that were imparted with me from my elders, from my family, from many teachers that I've had in my life. And I cannot name all of them, but they know who they are. And I hope I make it clear that that I wouldn't be able to share these things with you if they didn't share them, and have already been advocates and teaching this. So I want to emphasize that. And one of my mentors and teachers is my cousin, Shanae, as we call our older brother. In Navajo, you don't even say cousin, it's your brother, your sister. That's how tight and interconnected these are. And as the other speakers shared, a lot of what we're sharing with you is personal. And so I'll do the best when I'm touched personally, I do, show that. But this is a message my cousin shared, my older brother, recently, Tyson. He said, "Today I had a serene moment, continuous in my journey of Hajo. Despite her hurt and the desecration, the unrest and sometimes darkness she is realizing, Mother Earth showed me that she is resilient. She is strong and majestic, allowing me and everyone who took a second to realize her voice this morning, a smart, calming, and discerning message of hope. My friends and family, we will overcome. Remain strong, see your beauty through the darkness and let it shine. Show the world your resilience." And these are, that was just a Facebook post of my older brother, and it just resonates. And I said, I have to share that with this group of the hope and the connections there. And it also connects to our ancestors who, Dene, a traditional practice was you wake with the morning sun, you greet the east, the morning sun rising, and you run towards her. And you are ready for that day, and you embrace every day. So I'm going to share my screen. I want to share with you my story and journey. Let me see if I can do that properly. You'll see my desktop here in Monument Valley, where my family, my parents live right now. A place dear to my heart, Navajo country. Oh, and I will pause. I'm also an educator, so love this. So this is, one journey, one particular journey I'm sharing with you, and I do not speak for everyone, and also a layered aspect to my experience of coming to an awakening, my own awakening of what is climate change? What does that mean to me? What is the environment? What can I do? Or how can I help share these messages that I received from a young age, from my community, from family, even at church and in the scriptures, what I'm learning. So this is what I want to share with you today, and also emphasize, this is one story and there's so many others, like my cousin and my older siblings. So something in Navajo of also how you introduce yourself and where you're from is they ask you where your umbilical cord's buried, because wherever that is, you always have this connection, right? There's this embeddedness of your identity is, your homelands, the land around you, and that is central to who you are. And I think what's been sad, because I've lived in cities, I have my 3 children, and we've lived in different places, is that there's a major disconnect. Do you know the names of the rivers, the mountains? Do you know them personally? Even what was shared in the first session, that the mountains as a compass, are they a compass in your life? Are you connected? And with Danae teachings, that was central. Even the way that people said, your umbilical cords are buried here. You will always have this connection and draw to this place. And what does home mean to you? I also see something I want to emphasize with this group, because I assume many of you do have this, commitment and diligence to support and to address climate change and these issues of what we call. But I've seen, campaigns saying, protect the wild, keep Utah wild, for example, or the wild in the way that they talk about that. And also even how we think about indigenous relations with the land, such as, indigenous people support conservation, or the language such as that. Well, I think there's a need to reframe that and understand that the lands, and also how we talk about development. I noticed some of the questions coming up about that, is that for indigenous people, these lands are not wild. They come to know them. It's a part of our journey to know the lands and to see them as home, and the waters, and to really, like, as shared before, understand those spirits and understand how we are interconnected, and what we do to the land is hurting ourselves and hurting our future and our loved ones, right? So that's something I want to emphasize too, that it's not as much conserving something or even blocking something from being developed, but finding really sustaining and creating reciprocal relationships with all things around us. Even the rocks have spirits, as many indigenous people say. So I wanted to get a sense of everyone. Let me see if I can get out of here, minimize my screen again, because I wanted to get a sense of who I'm talking to. I want to hear from you and launch this question for you. If you go to this menti.com and put in this code, if you can, what does home mean to you? And if you go to menti.com, code 1139821, and I can see in a minute here, what does home mean to you? And hopefully this works. I teach, I'm like, and usually it's worked for me before. So just, practicing, or think about that. Good. All right, some folks got it in. So what does home mean to you? And making sure you're listening. Yeah, okay, it's working, good. All right, you see what some of you all are saying. Family, peace, safety, connectedness, belonging, comfort, the mountain, heart, children, place, history, roots, exactly, right? So very strong, powerful word associations here of what is home to us. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can exit that and do the next one, next slide, if it'll let me. Well, unfortunately, due to time, we'll skip that next one. But that helps me to understand, where are you all? Oops, sorry, one sec. I was trying to understand, where are you all coming from when you're thinking about home, and to help you connect that for many Indigenous people, including Dene, these are pictures, for instance, of my loved ones. Our sense of peoplehood and even who we are, it is inseparable from the earth around us, and coming to know, the mountains as our archives, and our temples. And we hear that as well in the church, in the analogies and language, that the mountains are a temple, they are sacred places. And to keep, that connection and that understanding of it when we're talking about, well, this land needs to be developed or conserved. Well, it's not just land or some piece to move around. It is like a part of our family, who we are and where we come from. And a part of my journey, it's so hard, so much to talk about in this, is these individuals here that you see I'm pictured with are some of the elders who have deeply influenced me. In the bottom corner here, this is, sorry, I flipped on you. But this picture shows my cousin Tyson, who I quoted, my aunt Phyllis, my daughter, and my aunt Florence, who recently passed away after contracting COVID-19. And COVID-19 has hit our people very hard, one of the hardest hit areas in the world, and has taken many of our loved ones, including my precious aunt. And this was the last time that I saw her. The reason why I share that with you is many people have asked, why is COVID-19 hitting some people harder than others? Why are there these disparities? Why Navajos? Why is it hitting them so hard? And we are people who have been on the front lines of climate change. I am going to share with you some stories of how I've seen that everyday violence, that actions of people who are cut off, don't even think, what their projects or things, they don't see these interconnections. That's a part of my goal, is to connect the dots, which I've been coming to my own consciousness and awakening of. I went to the schools that, didn't really teach us these kind of connections. And a lot of the history in my family is tied to the targeting and efforts to eradicate and erase this Indigenous knowledge that has been gained over time. So one individual I especially want to share the voice of is my Uncle Albert, who was a Navajo code talker. And I was drawn to talking to him about his war experiences. But every time I wanted to talk to him about his experiences in World War II, he shared with me rather how important Mother Earth is to him. And he shared his life stories. And that's something he's since passed away before COVID-19. And I would think about some of the things that he said, such as he would say, the mountain is my temple, or our Mother Earth is my purpose. He was not a Latter-day Saint, but he was one of the most spiritual people I ever knew, who had his own journey going to boarding school where he was, punished and hurt for speaking the Navajo language. But, who he spoke to were rocks and sticks, so that he would not forget that language and be able to use it later. I know we're tight on time, but I want you to hear that there are so many different resources out there. This is a really awesome project connected to PBS, and I won't take too much time, but I want you to be able to hear some of our elders in the Nek Bazad, in the Navajo language, and hear that they've been talking about, these issues of climate change. It's not in that term, climate change, but they understand this connectivity. So I want just to hear a few seconds of these elders and encourage you, there are these sources out there. Please look for them.
Alschodogi Haselnich Elandi Hotasanan Sand Alschowadi Kai. Aronda Naskinandik at Ot Anhi Naskin. Anna Ledina Halon Hitch Hot Esselni.
Okay. So I think that's a good.
Yeah.
So in clips such as this, what they are emphasizing and explaining is they remember when there was snow up to the horse's belly, that there was water in the land, that they could sustain life and their livelihoods. They know that has happened, and they have seen in their lifetimes these changes, rapid changes that have taken away, this livelihood and this way to live a long life. That is the central teaching, which emphasizes to live a long life in beauty, to seek after beauty in your life. And some of those relatives I showed you pictures of that I emphasized earlier, right here, due to time. This is pictures of my dad and some of my aunties. There's Florence, who has passed, and my Aunt Phyllis. They have been survivors of cancer, survivors of diabetes, have been survivors of losing teeth, wearing dentures, and a lot of hardships in their life because of these intergenerational trauma and attacks on their land, attacks seeking to take their land, but more specifically, and also the teachings of the land. If I go back here, back to this teachings of what I talk about in the Earth Memory Compass, the book I wrote, this is a Dene elder, an educator, who was emphasizing the teachings that we've grown up with, that yes, those mountains are our compass. They embedded, the teachings of spirituality, these holistic interconnections between who we are, our ways of life, and to know our past, present, and even the future, as Aranith said. And that it's tied to understandings of seasons, of directions. But as I was sharing, my family have been plagued, and not just my family, but Navajos have been plagued and have had been basically set as a lamb on the altar, set to be devoured by COVID-19 because of underlying, what we call underlying health conditions and immunodeficiencies that do have connections to what I identify as influences of settler colonialism, but also unchecked, market capitalism and this so-called development of digging in lands and not thinking about cleanup, not thinking about how do we care for the land, is this really necessary, or informing the people around of the risks of this. And so such cases that have hit my people, the Navajo Nation, just recently in 2015, Gold King mine wastewater spill. 3 million gallons of toxic sludge go into our sacred rivers. These are lifebloods to us. Water is life. To'eina. And contaminate these waters and are influencing our people. And as I heard about that, it hit me in the gut. I just was heartbroken that already our people, water is so precious, so delicate, and we don't have, second chances. We can't just move somewhere. These places are our home, are central to who we are. And when I learned about that Gold King mine wastewater spill, that was the first time, I'm embarrassed to say, but that was one of the first times that I heard about the Church Rock uranium mill spill of 1979. That was down the road from where my family would raise their livestock and where they lived. And I grew up just thinking we get cancer. We just have diabetes. But later I found out that one of the most horrific uranium mine spills in the United States was in Navajo Nation, and I start to be introduced and start connecting these dots, quite literally, right? These red dots on here are sites of radioactivity, of different kind of uranium mines or other impacts on our lands, and that are contaminating our people, awakening us to understand that we have to speak out, start to stand up for ourselves, for our lives and our future, and having remembrance and call for this. And then it started to draw me to ask certain questions, ask questions that even my family never talked about. I started to talk to my Aunt Phyllis about this, and she told me, I have uranium in me. And she's a cancer survivor, and they did find that she has uranium in her because they are drinking downstream from these kind of projects, developments. And there was a study, though many of these mines have been shut down, this is still ongoing. Right? Recently, I heard in San Juan County that they were bringing in toxic waste from Japan and bringing it over to that area. And again, you know, these concerns, worries about where do we take this? What do we do? And there was a study last year about in our women and babies in New Mexico, uranium is found in them. So a lot of very difficult interconnections here. And what I started to do finding out about this is what took me on a journey of saying, that's it, you know. I did not even know my grandparents. And I didn't learn Navajo language because my father, when he was 5 years old, he was dropped off at a boarding school where he was taught that his ways are wrong, are not right. And I was recently watching Danae Studies virtual conference with Shayla Goldtooth, who was talking about the plants and the knowledge of the plants, very similar to things that Dr. Paul Cox was talking about. And it was heartbreaking to me. I was so grateful to hear it, but it was heartbreaking to me that I know my Nali Hastin, my grandfather, he knew that. He had those teachings of what the plants do for us. And when you take medicine from the plants, you pray to those plants and you acknowledge them. You acknowledge those gifts of what they give to you. And I never was able to learn this. My father dropped off at a boarding school when he's 5. You know, there's this disconnect. And that's a part of even what I fear my own children. What are our children facing? Of disconnect from their land, not understanding that when you hurt your land, you are hurting yourself and hurting all things around you. So I started to, I'm going to zoom through all these. I started to organize different conversations with wonderful people such as Tommy Rock here, Janine Yazzie, Chili Yazzie of Shiprock, Jonathan Nez, our current president, and different communities wherever I am in universities. And this is why some of you might have heard of why Standing Rock matters, why the Dakota Access Pipeline, why these protests, why these water protectors, because we get it. We know, we see our people, our children being poisoned, have lost loved ones, not just loved ones, but have been disconnected from knowledge, from ways of knowing and who we are. And this is lastly what I want to leave with you. I know we're over on time here, but connecting it back to a lot of the teachings that I've received. My uncle, one of the last presentations he gave before he passed away, he said this. He said, there are disturbances in nature. Be careful. Volcanoes, they might be waking up to. You know why it is happening? They say some of us, Americans and the rest of the world, do not have any spiritual outlook. Some of them do not care about their next state. It is just one day at a time. So those things are disturbing all the way up. all planets. I don't want you to be scared. I want you to think about more than just tomorrow, to look beyond that. You are still scared of the child. That is your strength. So continue your outlook and beyond. I talk like this because many of you call me grandpa because of this one. I pray for you. I talk to my spiritual father. And for me, my uncle, you know, is sharing a lot of indigenous teachings there, but they're ones that, as we are and believe, we are heavenly brothers and sisters and all children of the Creator, as my uncle knew and had that faith. It reminded me of other teachings that I take to heart as well. Of Matthew 18:3, become as little children. Have that humility. I know with my children, they also are so, though it's funny, they think, oh, kids, they're learning it, but they are sponges. And they also have a humility to them, even if they, they might have to learn, it's mine, but they just have that pure love and innocence. Replenish the earth. What does that mean? Folks think, well, multiply, use the earth as you want. But there's that DNC, chapter 59, 18, 20. All things which come of the earth, right? Yes, they are for use, but with judgment, not to excess. And I think there's these other teachings, so many that remind me the examples of living water, land of promise. How do we have them? And especially for me going here, this is something I want to emphasize too, are the songs, how important music and prayer and song is. And the two songs, For the Beauty of the Earth, Consider the Lilies. And I think of also Navajo songs, Dene songs, that I've been learning that teach of Dizit Bien, this holiness and sacredness of the mountains, but for the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, right? Again, that resonates with me because beauty in that language is hajo. It's not just, oh, it's pretty to look at and it's fun to be a tourist in these national parks and, oh, fun, you know, it's in a casket. No, it is about relationships and interconnectivity of really coming to know and have harmony and balance in your life with all these things around you. So I thank you for inviting me to share these words. And I know that my beloved ones who have passed on and those who are suffering right now, I love the inspiration of Consider the Lilies that was quoted previously. I thought of that as well. There's a lot about pain and overcoming pain and suffering in that song too. And in the Beatitudes that we're learning in 3rd Nephi, from also emphasized, was in Matthew, and that we're getting ready for our Sunday school tomorrow, and following along and see Christ coming to the Americas, as is taught, coming to the descendants of Lehi, and teaching them these Beatitudes. I hope we think about Beatitudes and this beauty, hajo, in this way. Carry it always with you. Walk in beauty, that you continue this journey with you. And there's a lot of hard decisions that are hard for everyone, but that's my prayer. I'm still figuring it out myself, but I wanted to share what I've been learning on this journey. And I have so much more to learn, and I'm grateful to be here and learn from all of you. So, thank you. Wado, thank you.